Here's somebody who says, I'm learning to become unconditionally loving. I'm 100% committed to the journey. Real love has been the greatest gift God has given me. It really is a miracle. I've experienced the miracle myself, and I've seen it in the lives of uncounted other people. And I'm amazed at what happens every day. No matter how many years I've been doing this, every time I see a life turn around, I'm staggered by it. I recently had the opportunity of having somebody here who was just consumed with victimhood and anger and bitterness. She was just a little ball of fury, and now she just bubbles. It's like watching sunrise. It's that fun. The writer continues, I'm quite sure someone on this journey with me is someone that I would in the future possibly want a relationship with. He is somebody that I have wise calls with. So do I stop having wise calls with this person? Do I tell him how I feel about him? What's the right thing to do? If you're having thoughts or feelings other than friendship with somebody, the right thing to do is to tell them. And it really doesn't even matter who it is. If you don't, you'll get confused and he won't know how to properly respond to you in a wise person call. Let's say, for example, that you're having romantic thoughts towards somebody who's obviously very happily married in real love. You still need to say it, not so that they'll become your partner. And that's how the old world works. You tell somebody about your romantic interest so they'll reciprocate. No, the reason you tell somebody the truth now is because, let me think, because it's the truth. And then you have an opportunity to learn how to establish a relationship with somebody for whom you have romantic feelings while you can't act on them. So that you get to learn what it's like to have an unconditionally loving relationship with somebody, and you'll slowly feel the romantic feelings go away for all the right reasons. You'll learn that the romance means nothing. It's just a temporary distraction. What do you got to lose by telling them? If he likes you in a romantic way, that might be something that you could explore. If you're still making wise person calls to this person, you probably aren't ready for a romantic relationship, but it's at least something to consider for the future. If that person doesn't like you in a romantic way, you get to move on and not fantasize futilely about it. You save so much time. In any kind of dating or potential romantic situation, the idea isn't to avoid rejection or avoid no. Like the dating book said, it's to get to know faster. Here's somebody who says, I forgot to deliver a birthday present that my daughter-in-law gave me for my granddaughter. Then I took my 2-year-old grandson out, and my son discovered that the boy's toe was bruised afterward when we returned. So my son was thinking that I'd screwed up in some way. And I don't remember doing it, but it's possible. Then I didn't attend the gay pride parade that my daughter had requested that I attend. Then we had a new granddaughter added to the family this week, but I'm filled with fear that the kids won't figure out how to raise her to be happy. Then I attended 2 soccer games without incident, except that I was late for one of them. And my son calls me on the phone and says, where are you? How come you're not here? Then he concludes with this: these things are painful for me. In other words, look at the mistakes. Failed to deliver the present, possibly bruised your grandson's toe, maybe, maybe not. At 2 years old, toddlers bruise. I mean, look at the definition of the word. They toddle, they don't walk, which implies that half the time they're falling down. All these fears, not getting to the soccer game, these things are painful to me. Now, this is important. If those things are painful to you, you're seeing something wrong. If we're in pain, we are either doing or seeing something wrong. In this case, very wrong. You believe, you've been taught to believe from the time you're a little kid that you have to live up to every single person's expectation. And if you don't, then you're an idiot. You're a fool. You're not lovable. And you become afraid. What's the truth? You already know you're lovable. I love you. I know other people who love you. I've been present in the room when you came to the realization that there were people that loved you, that God loves you, and that you are worthwhile. I was there, so you can't deny that. Well, if you were worthwhile then, nothing's happened between then and now that suddenly made you not worthwhile. So the real truth is you simply failed to deliver a present. You screwed up. So what? You didn't attend a parade or whatever. You're also not in charge of everybody else's life as you've been taught to feel. So what's the solution? Lighten up. Be reasonable about your expectations of yourself. Get a life. Get your own life. Not part of everybody else's, your own. One without so much stress to do everything that exists to be done. So what is reasonable? Well, be as considerate as you can be. That's a reasonable expectation for yourself. As reasonable as you know how to be and as you're capable of being. Just knowing that you could be more considerate doesn't make you capable of it. Knowing how to swing a racket doesn't mean I can do it in a tennis game. If it's possible for you to attend an event or do a thing freely, then do it. If you can't, you just tell people, I won't be able to make it. And don't you dare explain yourself. This is a very sneaky thing. We've talked about it before. I'm going to talk about it again because we keep doing it. Because I watch people do it all day long, in and out of real love. Well, I can't make it to the thing because, I have this thing to go to. I can't make it to the soccer match for my granddaughter because, see, I'll be giving blood for the hemophiliacs. And I'll be serving food in the line for the homeless people with AIDS. And I'll be gathering collections for the children who are starving in the Sudan. See what we're doing? We can't make a mistake unless we can completely justify it with how wonderful we are. If you can't go to a thing freely, you just say, I won't be able to go. And if somebody says, well, why not? You say, I just won't be able to go. Don't explain yourself, because what are you doing the instant you explain yourself without meaning to? You're justifying your worth. You're justifying your existence. So be as considerate as you can. If you can't go to a thing, you tell them you can't. Or if you promise and fail, you just say, I screwed up. I do it whenever I'm like late to a call, or I said I would do something and then for whatever reason I didn't do it. I just go, screwed up. I promised more than I could do. Turns out I thought I could do, I said just yesterday on a call. I got to a call. I was there barely on time, but clearly I was distracted for the first 30 seconds or so. And I said, hang on, give me a sec to just kind of calm down, because it turns out that I thought I could do 5 things in the last hour and I could only do 4. So I made a mistake and I'm feeling a little hurried. And then I was okay. But I didn't explain what. And through all of this, no guilt. Guilt just kills you. I feel guilty that I didn't raise my kids so that my grandchildren aren't perfect. I feel guilty that my grandson has a bruise. I feel guilty that I didn't go to the gay parade. I feel guilty that, do you hear that? Even though you actually never used the word guilt, you don't have to. You feel guilty all the time. Guilt doesn't work. When you said these things are painful for me, yes, but that's a choice. It's a choice of perspective. And I just gave you a bunch of reasons or a bunch of ways that you can choose not to feel guilty. We choose the perspective we have. after which we then feel pain or we do not. Which brings us back to what I said at the top of your question. If we're in pain, we are either doing or seeing something wrong. Most of the time, it's because we're seeing something wrong. I know a woman in real love. New subject. Very controlling. Her daughter hated it, hated her controlling. When she began real love, her daughter simply used real love against her. So her daughter would call her and say, "You're no different. Real love hasn't helped you. Now you're still controlling, except now you're also a hypocrite. I hate you. I want nothing to do with you." I'm only laughing because I'm picturing how much the daughter enjoyed saying this. She'd always wanted to tell her mother that she was controlling, but see, she couldn't until the mother, after learning about real love, admitted it. Now she could pound her with the controlling and that she was a hypocrite. This is great. So the mother called me hysterically, crying, saying, "What should I do? What should I say? My daughter's angry at me and called me a hypocrite." Do nothing. Not about her attack. Just be kind. Just be consistent. Make contact with her, like regular contact with her, just to be kind, not so that she won't be angry at you. If you make more contact with her so she won't be angry, she's going to know that she's being played, and then she's going to get even angrier. Say as little as possible to her, because the more you talk, now just be aware of it. Do an experiment in your head. If you're a known controller, when you talk to people, experiment with thinking ahead of time, I'm going to use half as many words as I normally would. Why? Because if you're a controller, you use words to do it. You don't use chain link from Lowe's, so it's words that we use. Experiment with fewer words. So she explained to me, she said, my daughter said, because this isn't making sense to me. Oh, the lady who was writing to me said, so what do I do when I travel to the city where she is? Should I, and then she went through a bunch of things. Should I take her out to dinner? Should I, blah, 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 blah. She just went on and on. But don't the rules all change when I go to the city where she is? So what's the mother doing? She's saying to me, well, but if I'm in the city where she is, the rules change, right? Now I get to be more controlling and do more nice things for her so she won't be mad at me. No. I said, honey, shh, be quiet. Just do what I said. Just be kind, be consistently kind, and do it with as few words as possible. If you just happen to be in the city she's in, so what? You might call her and say, I'm going to be in the city. Do you want to spend some time together? You might not. But as it is now, you are a prisoner to her disapproval. That doesn't change. The approach to the solution to that doesn't change just because you happen to be visiting the town she's in. So the mother did what I suggested, which is remarkable all by itself. Most people decide to do it their way for several more years. She did exactly what I suggested she do, and she wrote, or she called me a couple of weeks later to say, you will not believe what happened. She said, I got an invitation from my daughter to come and visit for no reason, just to go to the city and just spend the day with her. It was a quiet and loving victory. Love is peaceful. It's not a three-ring circus. As soon as you see somebody with their hair on fire, it is impossible that the fire is fueled by love. Impossible. Write that down. New subject. Here's a woman who said, I totally messed up tonight. Great learning experience for me. That alone's a pretty great beginning, huh? I totally messed up tonight. Not, woe is me, I feel bad, now I have to cut my wrists, God will strike me dead. No, I messed up and it was a great learning experience. She continues. My husband, Bob, we'll call him, mostly because people are tired of Fred. Bob came home, and you're going to have to let me know when you're tired, Bob. And when Bob came home, my son and I attacked him with our Lego guns, which was great fun. We enjoyed each other as a family. But then later in the evening, Bob expressed how he felt like I wasn't supporting him in the way that he parents our young child, who's 3. Later again, he expressed that he felt like I was being distant. And both times I brushed it aside because I didn't know what he was talking about. I thought it was nothing. That this wasn't really about me, but was more likely to be about him, about Bob. That was a big mistake. This is wonderful to read. When our son, the 3-year-old, needed to clean up his Legos and he didn't, I made a comment to Bob about how we should use less words and more action. And so Bob went into our son's room and said, so you're cleaning up your toys, right? And I told Bob, see, that's a perfect example of you using words rather than action. And now I see how stupid it was of me to say that. Exactly. Perfect. You were paying attention. You weren't afraid. You'd already told your husband, Bob, that he was using too many words instead of just doing actions. 3-year-olds don't understand a whole lot of words. They understand consequences pretty well. You told him that, and then as soon as Bob made a mistake, you went in there and said, see, just like that. Very few people like to be corrected while they're in the middle of making a mistake. I can remember when I took piano lessons that, at the end of the lesson, I didn't mind so much when my piano teacher would say, so didn't have a whole lot of time to practice this week, did we? Somehow I thought that if I didn't practice all week long, he wouldn't notice. If you practice, the bottom line isn't the words, it's whether you can play the piece better. So I didn't mind it when he told me that, and I'd go, yeah, I really got to practice this week. I did sort of mind when every single time I hit a wrong note, he'd go, wrong, wrong. And if you haven't practiced very much, you get to hear wrong a lot of times. So back to this woman. She says, I'm laughing as I'm typing this. For everybody who's listening, this is a beautiful example of learning. People who are willing to learn don't fight. I just got off the phone with somebody a man, and I was telling him how angry he gets and how much angrier he is than he realizes. And what did he do? With almost comic appropriateness, he blew up at me. So let's just say he wasn't in a learning frame of mind, but the person writing this really is. I'm laughing as I'm typing this, in other words, what she's learning. But then all hell broke loose. Bob said, what's wrong with you tonight? Don't you think I'm aware of this? Stop lecturing me and telling me what I'm doing. You're not being a partner. A great many partners who practice real love only occasionally tend to practice it only to use the language of real love to shoot you with machine gun bullets. She continues, and wow, did I get angry after that. We know how well this is going to go, right? She criticizes him, he gets angry in response, and she gets angry in response to him. This is going to go great. But what does she say? She says, it was all my fault. I wish I got to read these words every single day, but I don't. It was all my fault. I had not paid attention to Bob telling me that something was off. He tried to tell me several times. I had been the one letting it get to this. I texted frantically with a wise woman for a little bit, and her response said something like, honey, just stay quiet. Right now, while he's angry, probably nothing will go well. Just hearing her call me honey helped me a lot. I started becoming a little bit more reasonable. I could see how there had been red flags earlier that I had ignored. I saw what an arrogant know-it-all I had been. Within minutes, I was able to go back to Bob and to our son and tell them both that I had been insane earlier, but now I've recovered. I kissed them both, told them that I loved them, and once our son was in bed, I could talk more with Bob. I told him everything about how I had ignored him when he told me that I was being distant and not supportive. I told him how I would like to pay more attention to him when he tells me these things. And next time he expresses that I'm not quite present, I will drop everything I'm doing and listen and get the love I need to be completely peaceful. If anybody wants an example of how to recover from an argument, play this back, type it out, and tape it to your refrigerator. Her husband gave her clues. She didn't pay attention. The conversation degenerated into anger, and she decided to be the big girl here. Somebody has to. Just takes one person. And went, I was insane. I was wrong. I will do better. Brilliant. Brilliant. This is how you change relationships. Not just by reading more and talking more, by doing something different. She continues. She decided that this amount of brilliance wasn't enough. She said, Bob said that he was impressed by how quickly I came to my senses. Now imagine if she hadn't done this, how would the conversation have gone? Straight into the toilet, as it's done many times before. She says, he said something like, just 10 minutes ago, you were looking pretty hateful. She said, I really learned a lot from tonight. I told my wise woman all about it, and she said, I'm stronger than ever. I like being strong. Yes, and it's who you really are. The world has the definition of strong completely wrong. We think strong means having the strength to manipulate corporations, manipulate people, control things. Real strength is the ability to make loving decisions no matter what's going on around you. That's real strength. Real strength is being responsible. One of my grandkids they tried to toilet train this kid. Nothing they did worked. I mean, there was a period, I'm not going to tell you the whole story because I'm going to start laughing and I won't be able to stop. But I mean, this kid got to the point where he wouldn't allow them to change his diapers. He was getting to be nearly 3 years old. There was a place where they were duct taping black plastic garbage bags to his legs to collect the overflow of the poop that was just rolling out of his diapers. This kid would have rolled in poop all day long rather than be toilet trained. He was going to make his point. You can't make me do this. And then when he got to be 3, something happened. And later, Don is going to tell me the details, which I cannot now remember. But on his 3rd birthday, he said, I am 3. Now I am strong. And he understood the meaning of the word strength, because strong boys don't have to have their diapers changed. And so he just started using the toilet. He started doing a whole lot of things differently. He decided that 3-year-olds were strong, as in more responsible, which is what the writer of this letter decided. Strength means being responsible. She continues, I think it's really dangerous for me to start thinking that I know this real love stuff so well now. Bless your heart. So she's strong and humble. True strength goes with humility. People who brag about how far along they are in real love are covering up their weakness. She said, because when I think that I know better than others, I become arrogant, I criticize, and I judge. And I think that's what Bob was picking up on. I think it's much better for me to remember that I'm just learning, just like everybody else. I make plenty of mistakes all the time, every day. And that's okay. I can just keep learning from these and move forward. I'm loved either way. I have nothing to prove, nothing to learn. Again, I recommend that you re-listen to this lady's entire letter and print it up. She said, I'm so happy this got resolved so quickly that I don't have to spend the rest of the evening getting back on track. Or you might have added, so I don't have to spend the rest of my life learning and relearning these lessons and staying miserable and justifying myself. This is brilliant learning. So humble, so teachable, so responsible, so strong. Beautiful, beautiful thing to read. A woman called me. We'll call her Cynthia, just because we're tired of Susie. She was worrying about her progress. Worry. My gosh, it was just palpable. I'm not good enough at my job. I'm not doing good enough at this. I'm not, just worry, fuss. I just call it fussing. And then she wrote, yes, I know. She's going to tell me what I'm going to say before I've even, this is all in writing, before I've even responded. I know the answer is obviously more trust. But how can we mechanically help her immediately? Building trust takes a lifetime. Learning to be loving takes a lifetime. We get better and better at it all the time. But we can eliminate the obstacles right now. So it may take me a lifetime to learn to be more loving to you, but I can stop hitting you in the face with a shovel today, permanently. And I can do it perfectly. I can stop doing the harmful things now. So how could we help her? Help her by showing her the next concrete step that she could take. Just telling somebody, well, just be more trusting. That's really hard for people to hear. But she can hear as a concrete step, stop the complaining, second guessing, fear, and fussing. No more. If you even have a fearful or fussing or complaining thought, change the subject to what's true. There are 5 wise people that love me. God loves me. I have a good life. But don't hide the complaining or the second guessing or the fear or the fussing. Instead, replace it with, again, what's true. Be grateful. So I said, stop talking right now. I want you to write out 2 pages of things you're grateful for. She did. Within minutes, she wrote me back and she said, I'm grateful for my boss who puts up with my mistakes when she had just minutes before been complaining about her demanding boss. I'm grateful for my coworkers who help me when I'm stuck. I'm grateful for 2 pages she went on with the things that she was grateful for. And she read from the gratitude list all day long. She wrote me the next day to describe the difference from doing that all day. The next day, she wrote me with the results. She said, when I decided to stop fussing and worrying, my mind became calm. And I was able to solve problems that I couldn't do before. One of her big complaints was that her job was too difficult. She just couldn't do these calculations. It was just impossible. Her job was her boss was giving her impossible things to do. Blah, 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 blah. Her hair was on fire. It is much harder to do mathematical calculations when your hair is on fire. Really. She said my day went much better. Bottom line, fear kills. Do whatever it takes to banish the fear. Whether it's tell the truth, whether it's be grateful, whatever. Loving takes a lifetime to figure out, but you can banish the fear right now. Here's somebody who says, I'm dating a lady named Rosemary, who's a retired middle school administrator, and she helped me yesterday, I put helped in quotation marks, by, quote, teaching, end quote, me how to scroll through a web page efficiently. Each time I made a scrolling mistake, now keep in mind, she's a teacher and a lifelong teacher and school administrator. Teachers tend to keep teaching people when they're out of the classroom. So each time I made a scrolling mistake, she showed me again how to do it. I didn't ask for the help. But when I point these things out, like when I tell her, honey, I didn't ask you for the help. I didn't ask you to teach me. She says, teaching is what I do. That's fairly terminal information if you're dating somebody. When you say to somebody, you just punched me in the face 3 times in the last 5 minutes, and they say, but I'm a boxer. That's what I do. You probably wouldn't continue dating that person. See? When people continue to justify what they're doing when you specifically ask them not to do it, probably not great dating material, do you think? Because now picture living with that 24/7. He continues, she loves to give information to people, everybody. She's teaching people all the time, to me, to her family members, unsolicited, nobody asks, and no topic is out of bounds. She gives advice about everything. She likes being smart and helpful to earn love in her family. It's like the little girl who sticks her hands up to answer every question, even before it's asked. I prefer to stumble through things on my own, unless I ask for help. Any ideas on addressing this further? She seems willing to learn something new, but this is a pattern she's unaware of. Notice you've been misled by words. She seems willing to learn something new. But when you pointed out something like, I don't want to be taught, what did she say? Go screw yourself. Teaching is what I do. And if you don't like it, too bad. So when she says, oh no, I'm willing to learn to be a partner, and then says, I do whatever I want, that's all that counts. All the promises in the world mean nothing. Every addict on earth, listen to me, every addict on earth says, oh, I really want to quit. And this time I'm really going to. They either quit or they don't. All the words in the world don't make any difference. And when they go out then and drive drunk and they kill your 4-year-old grandson, you're not going to be comforted by, well, but I'm really going to quit this time. No, because your grandchild's dead. Or you are. So you've got to be ultra clear with a controller like this. And I would suggest saying something like this. Not exactly, it's just an option. So you say, look, honey, I like being with you. I really do. You're fun in so many ways. You know a lot of things. I like listening to you know a lot of things. And there is something you need to know. There's something you don't know, and it's interfering with our relationship. When I want help or correction or information, there's a perfect way for you to know that. I will ask. Simple. I will ask. So unless I do ask, I don't want the correction or the help. If you offer it without my asking, I'm going to raise my hand and say, I've got this, which means this. You need to stop what you're saying right then, because it's none of your business. And I'm not mad. I'm just saying, I've got this. Stop talking. It doesn't matter whether you're being genuinely helpful. It doesn't even matter if you think I need to hear what you say. Every know-it-all thinks that everybody needs to know what they know. No. So don't help unless you're asked. Is that clear? That's how clear you have to be with the controller. Now, there might be some people who would say, well, now, aren't you controlling the controller by saying, unless I ask, don't say anything? Oh, no, not at all, because you go on, if that's unclear, and you say, now, if you want to keep offering unsolicited advice, if you want to keep teaching, if you want to keep controlling, you can, but I won't be in the room. I'll simply leave the room if you keep talking, and if you keep doing that enough times, I won't be in your life. And it appears that that's exactly where this particular relationship is going, as I've learned with more time and experience. Controlling is just as severe an addiction as cocaine is. People just are addicted to the sense of power that comes from telling people what to do. I talked to a woman, new subject, who had been an angry, vengeful, bitter person for more than 40 years. And after feeling loved and completely trusting somebody, she looked like a different human being. No kidding. I saw her face and went, "Who are you?" When she went home, she stayed with trusting and peaceful. She's in sales. She installs computer systems for businesses. And she went into a business that was failing. She went in as a salesperson. The business was failing because of a lack of information technology. So she had a product that would help the business. They needed a new computer system. Apparently, they were still using their fingers and abacus. They needed a new system for accounting, for scheduling, for everything, and they needed it like 10 years ago. The owner was a complete victim, worried about everything. Well, what about this? And what if the computer doesn't work? And then what if we, you've all met worriers. They can say, what if about everything? Well, there's no hurricane today, but what if there is next week? And everything is fine now, but what if a meteor crashes through the ceiling? What about this? What about that? And this lady that I'm talking about, whose life changed a lot, she just took over. Now I want you to pay attention to this, because this is going to sound like the controller we were just talking about. And I want you to hear the difference. She said, "Here's what we're going to do. I do this every day. I'm a professional at this. And here's how this is going to work for you. We're simply going to do this and this and this, and everything about your accounting and scheduling and everything else about your business is going to improve." She sold the computer system. What won the day? Her confidence. The lady that she was selling the computer system to had something that she needed, and she didn't need somebody who lacked confidence, who went, "Well, now I have an opinion and you don't really have to listen to it, and I'm not really trying to control you." No, she just said, "Here's what you need." So she both sold the system and she helped the company. This is a great illustration of how our innate traits, our innate qualities, are good. They become destructive only with fear. This woman is a naturally organized and strong personality. There are lots of people who have wonderful innate character traits. Without fear, her ability to organize things and to be strong is beautiful. She very possibly saved this lady's business. With fear, this woman becomes a monster. I saw this woman before she had an intervention and before she gave up victimhood and controlling. I saw this woman, and she was scary. Both, if she would sit in a seminar, the seat on each side of her was empty, and the seats behind and ahead of her are empty. She just put out a flame. She was controlling, she was vengeful, she was angry, she was bitter. But as she learned to feel loved and got rid of her fear, she began to learn who she really is. She's beginning to learn who she really can be, and that her innate qualities are assets. Our assets without fear are beautiful things to see. Here's a mother that writes to me, and she says, "My son Evan, who's, if I remember, 9, I think, kids keep changing their age, which is very inconsiderate, was microwaving a bowl of fudge sauce with the lid on." I'm already going like this. As he took it out, my husband explained why that doesn't work very well, as the kid took it out of the microwave. And then he also said, "And by the way, you left it in too long." Did the 9-year-old listen? Of course not. 9-year-olds prefer to learn by experience. So Evan opens the lid, and there is Mount Chocolate Volcano. Chocolate sauce shot all over the floor, the counter, the cupboard, the oven mitts. Thankfully, he had on mitts to prevent burns on his hands, which is predictable. This is how kids learn the consequences of choices. I actually think it was possibly a good idea just to let him put it in and open it up, knowing that he'd left it in there too long. He's going to remember the next time he puts chocolate fudge sauce in the microwave oven, isn't he? Sometimes we have to let them learn like this. That's okay, as long as it doesn't like endanger their lives. But then the mother continues. Here's some cool things that happened. 1, neither my husband nor I sighed heavily with inconvenience or a sense of burden. Incredible progress. Actually, knowing you two, it's close to a miracle. Number 2, he didn't run away or make his usual grunting sounds or shrugging his shoulders or thrashing around or acting like a victim or crying as a result of a mistake. More progress. Very big progress. You two have finally loved him to the point where he doesn't see every mistake as the end of the world like he used to. He doesn't see every mistake as proof that he's a permanently defective human being. I mean, this is a triumph. 3, Don and I talked about all of this later, and we could see that number 1 and number 2 had happened, and that this was very cool. This was progress. For those of you who missed it, the miracle here at number 3, they talked. Here are 2 people who used to fight over everything and not talk about anything. They talked about their parenting progress. It's like you two have become possessed by angels. This is great. 4, I asked Evan, the 9-year-old, what he learned versus telling him how he was wrong. More progress. And perfect. And I'm assuming that he got to clean up the entire mess of the chocolate that he made. That would be the natural consequence. And then I learned from a later email that, yeah, she had brilliantly done exactly that. He spewed chocolate all over the kitchen, and he got to wipe it all up. Same mother writes, but different circumstance, not a mothering circumstance. She said, my dad came over and started trying to fix our broken window. And I said, no, we don't want to do that now. He kept going. And we all know well-meaning people who try to help us do things that they don't really know how to do, so they end up making them worse. I started to panic. She said, why won't he listen? He's going to make this worse. There's going to be broken glass. I'm going to have to clean it all up. And then in my mind, she said, I heard you saying the 2-word phrase, clearer, sooner. This was my moment. I could still stop this. Hallelujah. I mean, this is where you see the power of feeling loved. This is the strength that we talked about earlier. It's the kind of strength that translates to taking responsibility for your own life. So first, you felt worthwhile enough to speak up. That's huge, because in the past you haven't. And 2, you'd heard enough video chats and heard me talk about these kind of things enough that in addition to feeling worthwhile, sometimes just feeling worthwhile is not enough. If you're sufficiently inexperienced, you might feel worthwhile, but you have no idea what to do with it. You don't know any options. But you've studied real love, so you knew an option that might work. You needed both. And because you were prepared when you went to reach for an alternative in this circumstance, you had it. And you used what you had. Hooray. I'm just going to do a parenthetical aside here. This happens every day. Couples call me, individuals call me, and they say, we got in this circumstance, and I know I needed to be loving, but, and then the rest of it translates to, but I didn't have enough love, and I didn't have any options, and so when I reached for the love, it wasn't there, and I screwed everything up. It's just like an athlete who in the moment of a game or a race or whatever reaches for that extra little reservoir of endurance or strength or skill or talent. And what if they'd skipped 50% of their last training sessions? Then they reach for that extra little bit of strength or skill, and it ain't there. In most cases, when we want to do something truly different, it's too late to prepare. We've discovered either we're prepared and we can do it, or we can't. This lady reached for something different, and she discovered she had prepared. For years, she's been diligent about learning this. Years, she's been diligent about feeling more loved. So she was ready. And so what did she do? She turned to her dad and she said, Don and I have decided to take care of this. We're going to pay somebody else to figure it out. And so we don't need your help with this. And I said it with such confidence, not anger, not controlling, confidence, that my dad just said, oh, okay. She adds, I don't know if he's mad or hurt or judging me, but it really doesn't matter. It's sweet that my dad wants to help, but I really get to decide. You're right. It doesn't matter what other people think of our decisions, but they're still our decisions to make. And until we have both the knowledge, because we've studied, and the capacity, because we feel unconditionally loved, we can't make different decisions. We may say we want to, we may badly need to, but if we're not prepared, we got nothing. We'll just keep repeating the same old dumb stuff. I know a woman who has had a cold, sterile marriage. Little communication, just kind of a vacuum relationship. And the two of them had an intervention, and she wrote to tell me, she said at dinner, I told, we'll call him Fred, because I don't know, I'm already tired of Bob. She said, I told Fred that I was tired, and he'd had a bad day at work, and he was tired too. And in the past, this would have gone straight into the toilet. Yeah, no kidding, because I can remember your past conversations. Arguing, victimhood, attacking. You two would bring out all the instruments of war. But then he made a joke about how we could split up responsibilities and avoid getting in each other's way for the rest of the evening. I'll do this, you do this, and we'll just sort of stay out of each other's way because we're both tired. That's brilliant. That's partnership. Partnership doesn't mean that you're equally yoked and you're arm in arm and smiling and kissing all day long. It means working together to make things happen. This is wow for you guys. He said, I'll take care of our son for the next 5 minutes, and then you can take care of him for the rest of the evening. That's fair, right? She says, and then we both burst out laughing. For everybody who's listening, this is beautiful, unbelievable. When you can joke about the horror of the relationship that you used to have, of the stupidity of the things you used to do, that is when you know that you've let the past go. Really, when you can joke about it. I mean, he made an obvious joke about he'd take care of the kid for 5 minutes and she'd have him for the rest of the evening, which is how they actually used to do it. And they both laughed. Laughter is indispensable. It's why I often laugh at what people are doing. It just communicates. Laughter communicates just with a sound that there's no shame, there's no pain, that it's just absurdity. I can't count how many people have written to me and said, after our last conversation, everything changed when you laughed at me. And sometimes, just to make things perfectly clear with people, I say, you realize that I'm not laughing with you. Human behavior is hysterical. We do the dumbest things. We say we want to be happy, and then we make choices that absolutely guarantee we'll be miserable. That's pretty crazy and worth laughing at. She continues, and our son laughed too. Her son, by the way, is 2 years old. So here are the mother and father laughing at the absurdity of suggesting that their responsibilities be so lopsided, and their son laughed. And I thanked my husband for making me laugh. You know, he's a pretty funny guy, and I never used to appreciate that. And I love that because I love to laugh, and the evening went perfectly. Now, I slid by it really quickly, so I don't want you to miss this. She said her 2-year-old son laughed too. Okay, that's a good thing. But the point I want to make is this. There were, for each occasion like this where they laughed and their son laughed, prior to recently, there were 100 situations where the two of them fought with each other. And because they were fighting, they didn't even notice that their 2-year-old was shriveling up on the inside. Little children are very sensitive to how you feel. And while you and your husband, when I say you, I mean whoever's listening, you and your husband or you and your wife or you and whoever are skewering each other with angry looks, you don't even have to raise your voice. There doesn't have to be any yelling or name calling. The tension in the room is just stabbing a little child. And that's how they grow up wounded. So when we get the real love that we need, when we get the experience we need, when we get the knowledge we need to make different decisions to the point where we can love each other and provide a light-hearted, happy, loving environment for our kids, that is a miracle. And it happens when you just do the simplest things. When you find enough love in your life, when you trust it, when you remember it, and then you're equipped to do the next natural step, which just kind of naturally flows, which is to share it with those around you, as this couple did with each other and as they did with their 2-year-old, whose life will be forever blessed because they did. We can all learn to do this. We'll talk again in a week.